Baby crying and IQ, t-test for the slope. A method for predicting IQ as soon as possible after birth could be important for early intervention in cases such as brain abnormalities or learning disability. It has been thought that greater infant vocalization, more crying, is associated with higher IQ. A study of 38 newborns were made to cry after being tapped on the foot, and the number of distinct cry vocalization within 20 seconds was counted. The subjects were followed up at 3 years of age and their IQ were measured. The data are provided in the Baby Crying and IQ database. Test whether the observed weak to moderate linear relationship between cry count and IQ is significant. Let's examine the given database. There are 2 columns. The first column is cry count and the second column is IQ. These are the 2 variables, and they are both quantitative variables. This is therefore a Q-to-Q row type classification. So we would need to construct the scatter plots, but first we need to determine which one is the explanatory variable and which is the response variable. Since the researchers seem to determine the IQ from the cry count, or they suggest that the cry count determines the IQ score later on. The cry count is therefore the explanatory variable and the IQ is the response variable. Always construct the scatter plots when we deal with a Q-to-Q row type classification. To do this, we will use Desmos. Simply copy the 2 columns, including the headers, cry count and IQ, and make sure that the explanatory variable is on the left. In this case, the explanatory variable, cry count, is already in the left column. So we copy and we open Desmos calculator, t-test for the slope, and paste the 2 columns. For this calculator to work, we would need to change the titles or the headers to x sub 1 and y sub 1. In the process, we might end up with x sub 2, y sub 2, x sub 3, y sub 3, but the calculator would format it so that we would need to have x sub 1 and y sub 1. The scatter plot is automatically provided to us. By describing this scatter plot, we see that there is a slightly positive association with a very weak to moderate linear relationship. The calculator provides the regression line with the slope of 1.536 and the y-intercept 90.75. The correlation coefficient is 0.4018. A correlation coefficient of 0.4018 implies that the linear relationship is weak to moderate and it has a positive association. The calculator will provide the result for the test. The t-test statistics is 2.6328 and the p-value is 0.0062. But since this is a two-tailed test, we would need to double the p-value, so the final p-value is 0.0124. The t-test for the slope is the two-tailed test, and we will see in a minute why. We now have everything we need to carry out the test properly. The calculator will not give us step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. These are the steps that we would need to present on paper and pencil. Step 1 is to state the hypothesis. These include the null and the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis is a statement of indifference. So there is not a linear relationship between cry count and IQ. X sub A, or the alternative hypothesis, is there is a linear relationship between cry count and IQ. The second step is to collect the data. The data were provided to us, so we would need to summarize this. We summarize the evidence in the form of the test statistic, which we were given by the calculator. It is 2.63. So the test statistic is 2.63. The degree of freedom is always n minus 2 for the t-test for the slope. N is 38, and so the degree of freedom is 36. The third step is to assess the evidence. The calculator provides the p-value, we double it, and we get the p-value of 0.0124. This is small. This is less than 0.05, so we would reject the null hypothesis. If we reject the null hypothesis, then we would conclude that there is a linear relationship between cry count and IQ. The small p-value provides strong evidence that there is a linear relationship between cry count and IQ, and the reason is that the small p-value provides strong evidence against the null hypothesis. And the graphical display scatter plot along with the correlation coefficient of 0.4018 tell us that the linear relationship is weak to moderate. And so we would combine the two facts and make a statement. We conclude that the data provides strong evidence that there is a weak to moderate linear relationship between cry count and IQ. Strong evidence because the p-value is small. Weak to moderate linear relationship because the correlation coefficient is only 0.4018. And again, these 4 steps are not provided in the calculator. We will need to present them in this order.